I should also put
Tweeting.
focus assist on.
Yeah, I should do it too.
Priority only. Right, we should be live streaming on both now.
Oh, I need to test my voice recorder. Testing 1, 2, 3.
So smack it hard.
Of course, I can't hear it because I really just.
Hello, everyone. We should be live. Can you hear us and see us? I hope so. Let's pop out the chat there. How is Mixer?
Oh,
Mixer.
God, really?
Yep. We are also live on Mixer.
Yes.
Us and see us. I hope so. Sweet. Yeah, we'll be starting in just a sec. Sorry, we're a minute or so behind.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. All right.
I'm ready to go when you are.
Yeah, just let me fix Mixer. Mute that so I don't hear myself twice.
Oh, great. The second we go live, my camera just goes out of focus. So stupid. Have y'all watched the Sonic movie yet? No.
I actually want to see the Sonic movie.
Why? Do you like
Because
Sonic?
it just looks fun. And Jim Carrey looks like that's classic Jim Carrey, and it actually got good reviews.
Yeah.
Like
I need to be in like a type of mood to watch a kids movie, because
Sure.
it is a kids movie. Let's be real.
well, except for the violent death scenes and dismemberment.
Is that dismemberment in it? How much?
No.
What's the? Oh, okay. I was gonna say. What's the age
Well,
rating?
Sonic likes to cut the faces off his
Listen, he
victims
goes
to wear
super fast. He could roll through people and just obliterate them.
Right.
I don't know.
I keep setting the quality for Mixer to something lower. All right, there it goes, I think. So I could say bandwidth. All right, I am. Let me turn this down. All right, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 167 for February 21st, 2020. Hey everyone, Jan Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we're going to be talking all sorts of things. There was a major story this week, so in that sense it was pretty slow, which was good because I was actually traveling for a while, so I'm glad I didn't miss too much. But we're going to be talking about the Laptop 3, the Surface Laptop 3. Evidently, some people are having problems with the screen spontaneously cracking, which is kind of weird. We'll talk a little bit about that. Some Windows 10 update issues, which are kind of vague, but probably run-of-the-mill these days. New icons, which were first shown off in Windows 10X, and which now apparently are coming to Windows 10 desktop in some form or another. We'll talk about what that means and larger implications for live tiles, as well as what people think about them. Your phone, new features, and we're going to kind of just do a little riff. Zach, both and I have the new Galaxy Z Flip, and so we're going to talk a little bit about our experience with folding phones and flippy phones and how that plays into it. We'll also talk about your phone from Microsoft, which I'm familiar with it. I've used it before. But I've been on the iPhone 11 for the last 4 months, basically, and so your phone's useless, so I haven't been able to use it with that. But now I'm finally using it with a Samsung phone, which is sort of the optimal experience for your phone, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the Surface Pro X a little bit. One of our writers, our head of our news team, Dan Thorpe Lancaster, recently switched to the Surface Pro X away from the Surface Book 2, so he did a little article about that, so we're going to talk about that. Zach also has a Pro X now, and our managing editor has a Pro X. That's 4 of us at Windows Central that are using the Pro X. And mind you, these were all pretty much bought. The only one that wasn't bought was mine, but everybody else bought theirs. So goes to show you, we use what we talk about. And then finally, we're going to talk about probably the biggest story of the week, although it may not be a big story. The Empyrean Nebulous, which sounds like a ship in Star Trek or something like that. But it's allegedly a Windows 10 on ARM phone that's coming out sometime this year from a company no one's ever heard of before. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. why that could be interesting, but why also we're not that excited about it right now. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. You know what I did this week, Dan? I bought another Galaxy Watch Active 2.
Why?
Because I wanted. So I'll tell you why. I
I know
wanted.
you scratched.
I did scratch the first one
Yeah.
on like the second day I had it, and I don't know how I scratched it. I just woke up one morning and there was a scratch on it, and it made me very
Yeah.
sad. But
Yeah.
that wasn't too bad. But the main reason why I got another one is because I actually wanted the stainless steel model, which has LTE built in, and
Oh.
now I have that, and it's so much nicer.
Okay, so this is okay. So we're going to just take a pause here for a sec because I'm like kind of interested in this because I've never had a Samsung watches, and we'll talk about this because I'm using the Galaxy Z Flip right now. I did switch back to Fitbit because I needed some sort of smartwatch functionality.
Yeah.
And I also want to try Fitbit now has the SpO2 sensor working, which tells me if I'm dying in my sleep or not. Turns out that feature though is not live on my watch,
Oh,
so
really?
that was a pointless thing. But how is this Galaxy Watch? Because I am sort of in the market, and I think and our listeners should be curious about this too, because this watch does work with other Android phones, right?
Yes.
It's not just limited to Galaxies. But why it might be relevant, because I know people are like, this is a Windows podcast. Why? Because if you're interested in the Surface Duo, and I think Zach and I will both confirm this, that if you're switching to a folding or dual screen phone, having a smartwatch is going to be, I think, important to the experience. I wrote an article about this, why Microsoft should make their own watch. We have no evidence to suggest they are. But so, Zach, tell us about this watch, how well it works with your phones, and
Sure.
why I should get it. And what does LTE do?
So, so let me talk about the Galaxy Watch itself first. I actually first picked up a Galaxy Watch Active at Ignite. I was with Dan when I bought it. I bought it at Microsoft Store, and the reason I bought it was because at the time Fitbit had just been acquired by Google, and I wasn't feeling too happy about that announcement. So I wanted to get rid of my Fitbit quickly. So I got a Galaxy Watch Active 2, and I said it at Ignite, and I still believe this 100%. This is the Apple Watch of the Android world, which is funny because it doesn't run Android. This is a Tizen OS-based watch. It's a Samsung's own operating system. And I really, really like it. It's fluid. It's fast. Notifications are like interactive. You can you can talk to the watch and stuff. It does have Bixby, but I don't really. It doesn't matter. It still does voice dictation and stuff well enough.
Yeah.
It's got an app store. It even has Microsoft Outlook support, and it's got Spotify, all of that. It's not a incredibly diverse app store by any means, but I'm not a huge smartwatch app user anyway.
Right.
So the fact that it has Outlook and Spotify is basically everything I need to do. It's got weather built in and stuff. It also has Samsung Health, which I actually don't mind. I actually kind of like the UI and stuff. I do wish it would sync up with my
External
Fitbit.
services.
Yeah, and whatnot. But it doesn't matter. I still really like it. I think it's very comfortable to wear as well. And I think it looks stylish. The round face with the round screen is much better to me than, say, the Apple Watch or the Fitbits, which are sort of
That's
square.
funny too, because I was gonna say Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile, he's very much a proponent of circle smart watches.
I prefer it.
And absolutely hates like the Apple Watch design. I'm actually on the other fence. Like I understand the argument, but for me, man, I'm having a hard time going back to Android after using the iPhone 11 and Apple Watch. And I hate saying that, but like I'm kind of like, this is like where Tom Warren comes in, right? He always says the same thing about iOS just being much more fluid and smooth. And it's so true. Like, it's really infuriating. Android has gotten much better, and Samsung has gotten better too, but it's still sort of night and day between the experiences. Like, I just find, the stuff with Android, it's just, even the Bluetooth stuff. Like, my Fitbit keeps, like, not syncing on occasion. Like it's just like, oh, I can't find it. And I'm like, why? You just found it like an hour ago. What changed?
I've not had that issue with this yet. At least not that I've noticed. Maybe it's because I'm paired with a Samsung phone, then there's some sort of tighter integration. Yeah. Because originally it was paired with a Pixel 3, and it works fine there. I believe it works with iPhone as well. I've never tried it on the iPhone, but I believe you can sync these up to an iPhone with limited functionality thanks to Apple's lockdown ecosystem. Battery life on this is actually very good as well. It's not as good as the Fitbit, which is I think 5-6 days. You might get 4 days out of this on Wi-Fi / Bluetooth. If you're using the LTE, that will obviously take a nosedive. The LTE functionality on it works kind of like an Apple Watch does. So if you pair it up to your data plan and stuff, you can take calls on it when your phone's not around. You can go on the internet. It just has an active data connection. I got it primarily for if I forget my phone sometimes, or sometimes I like to go to the gym without having my phone on me, because you can load it up for music and stuff and sort of just have the watch, which is what I like.
So can you download Spotify to it?
You can sync up your own music. I haven't tried it through Spotify. You can sync up your own music to the app itself. I think there's a music app here somewhere. Can't find it now. Yeah, there's a Samsung Music app which lets you load up onto the watch specifically. Maybe the Spotify app can do it. I've not tried it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does support offline music playback, which is a big deal for those who want to carry their watch without their phone, of course. And overall, yeah, I really like it. It's waterproof as well, so you can get in the pool with it and it should be fine. Like I said, it's the Apple Watch of the Android world, even though it runs Tizen. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm starting to think for myself that this now there's a good chance I may run out to Best Buy after this call and get one to try out.
It's like the non-LTE model is not expensive. It's I think it's considerably cheaper than an Apple Watch. It's in the UK you can get them for like $249, I think. So yeah, they're not expensive.
The LTE is super interesting because I do have the Apple Watch with LTE and I don't ever use it.
Right. So, yeah. It's one of those. It's in the rare instance you need it type things.
Yeah, I feel like if you're I think it's if you're a runner. I think that's the big sell. It's like if you're a runner and you hate carrying a phone with you. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of it. I just have never used it, and Lord knows I don't really take phone calls very often, so not that big a deal. Still, well, that's interesting. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll pick one up and give that a go because Fitbit. Yeah, someone pointed out, Fitbit syncing on Android is definitely hit and miss. Maybe the Google purchase will solve that. But that's like, I feel like that's like Microsoft's bringing us time schedules for dark mode in Windows 10. It's like that sounds like a really reasonable position and idea to have. Yeah, and yet I doubt it will happen.
Which is funny because Xbox has it. They've written the code, just bring it over. Anyway.
That's funny. I don't know.
Real quick before we move off this topic, I've only praised it so far. There are some minor downsides, some minor annoyances to me personally. Primarily, if you sync it up to a phone that isn't a Samsung, you have to download like 4 apps to get it working. Yeah. You have to download Galaxy Wearable, you have to download some other app, and then another app before it even considers working on your phone, which is a minor annoyance, but I'm someone who likes to have as few apps on my phone as possible. I'm very minimalist like that. I don't want excess apps clogging up things. So yeah, that's just a minor annoyance to me. But like I said, otherwise it's all good. It's got wireless charging. It's got most everything. It's really, really nice.
Wait, the wireless charging, is it like, you mean it's not Qi wireless charging, is it?
It's a good question. I think I don't know, because what does the Galaxy Buds use? Because
that's Qi, because you can use the reverse charging on the phones.
Yeah, so you can charge this watch on the back of your Galaxy phone or on a wireless charger. I have the Samsung dual wireless charger, which has like a sit-up one for the phone and then one that lays down for the watch. And it charges there wirelessly. It's really nice. It doesn't charge incredibly fast, but it charges, so that's nice.
Interesting. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll pick one up. But if you guys are, like I said, for Surface Duo people, this is an important conversation because I'm telling you're going to need some kind of watch
Unless
solution.
You love opening and closing things, you're going to want to watch.
And Fitbit, I've obviously soured on Fitbit after the Google. Well, it's not even done the acquisition yet. I think there was a story this week about Europe, of course, is talking about privacy issues and maybe challenging the acquisition, which is not complete yet. But, Fitbit, it's funny, after using Apple Watch Series 5, it really is just miles between the two in terms of not even the features, just the reliability and syncing of things. It's just, for instance, well, we'll get to the Galaxy Z Flip in a little bit later, but let's turn to Surface Laptop 3. So I still owe an Intel review. You did one, but I want to do one on the benchmarks and everything like that. I still have to do that. I'm way behind on everything because of travel. But Surface Laptop 3, this is apparently, I think it's the 13-inch or the 15-inch. I'm not really sure. But the long short of it is the displays for some people are cracking. And this isn't some sort of like they put pressure on it or they dropped it or anything obvious. It's just like it's something maybe expanding, which is weird because on the laptop 3, there's nothing really behind the display. Surface Book has a lot behind that display, including the processor and RAM and a battery. So in theory, if something goes wrong with that battery and it expands, you can get something like this. But it's not really clear. But there's enough people that complained about it. It started a Reddit thread that Microsoft had to respond to it. This gets into some interesting quality control issues. I don't know if this is like, I don't know. It's always weird, hard to quantify these complaints because, yep.
Do we know if it's the model with Alcantara or is it both models that this is happening to?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because
I have a theory.
Hunch, I wouldn't. Yeah, I see where you're going with this. So I know what Zach's going to say. So on the Alcantara model, the Alcantara actually acts as sort of a nice cushion for when you close that display. And Microsoft made the very conscious decision. It's a very unique design choice on Surface Laptop where there is no rubber seal sort of around the display edge. It's just edge-to-edge glass, and it's just completely smooth and flat. And with Alcantara, that was okay because it acted, like I said, as a soft kind of cushion seal when you closed it. Without the Alcantara, they had to do some like a little bit of recessing and change it a little bit. But I think what Zach's going to say is that now you're still technically having some metal against glass at some point, or if there's just modest pressure applied, and that could be the cause. And I think that's a really good point. And I have the Alcantara 13-inch, so...
I have the 15-inch without Alcantara. Mine's fine so far. I mean, it could be a number of things. It could be the user maybe shutting it a little bit too hard. Maybe not even hard enough for them to notice or think it was hard, but just harder than normal for it to sort of crack. Or maybe even they shut it normally and there was a tiny piece of like a grain or something, maybe it's a sharp piece of dirt or like a grain of sand or something just sitting on the deck, that if that got stuck between the glass and the base itself could cause serious damage. Like something small enough that you wouldn't see it, but something sharp that could easily cause that as well. But yeah, that's down to Microsoft's conscious decision to make it so there is no bezel when you close it. It sits perfectly against the base of the laptop, which I like as a design choice. I think it looks really nice, but if it's causing glass to break, that is an issue.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things with the Surface Laptop in terms of that design choice at the display, that it's such a subtle but important thing that just separates Laptop 3 from other laptops. Like the fact that there's no speaker grills, right? The speakers are below the keyboard and they sound exceptionally good. I mean, the other companies have caught up now. Lenovo's Yoga series with its speaker bar, for instance. But considering what Microsoft has worked with on these devices, they pull off some amazing engineering. But yeah, there are risks there. So we'll be following this story. The deal seems to be if you do have this issue, your best bet is to try to take it to a Microsoft store. But of course, if you're outside the U.S., that's problematic. And if you're even in the U.S., not a lot of states, I know some people have like one that's like an hour or two away. The warranty servicing seems to be sort of up in the air for this because Microsoft has, Microsoft has to be in a special case here because if someone does like drop or break it, right, that's user fault. Yeah. On the other hand, if someone drops it, like it's going to be a pretty evident external damage to show that cracked the display. Whereas these cases, it's like there's no external damage to be seen and the display is cracked. So, but yeah, even if something gets in between that keyboard and that display, right, it can cause a problem.
Yeah, that's what I assume is happening in most cases. Just a small grain or something that's just there, and they've shut it and it's cracked it. Because
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how this glass stuff works in terms of they're very much scratch resistant now, which is nice, especially on touch displays. But they can also be a little bit more brittle, because of how hard they are. And it's true, if you get like a little sharp, like I want to say like a pebble or something like that, that much pressure on something that hard and you press it, could actually crack the display if you press it. So
didn't Mark Gwynn break his Surface Book 2 display by shutting it too hard?
Yep.
Because the Surface Book 2's design is just like that, right? Except I'd say even worse.
Less area touches.
Yeah.
But in a way that's almost worse because it's pressure on that top, and that's where his cracked. Yeah, it was in the top corner.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened to more people thinking about it. At least I haven't seen people complain about that issue.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, well, we'll follow that story and see what's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, try to contact Microsoft support if this happens to you. Also, let me know on Twitter or Zach on Twitter too. Maybe we can,
Yeah. If it
raise this.
happens to mine, don't worry, I'll let you all know.
It just means the next laptop's got a nice rubber seal
Yeah, I got
on the
ugly
side.
rubber
It's
seal, but for
gonna
safety.
catch dirt and dust. Like, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, it really is like kind of like a big deal though, because there's a lot of laptops that have like a slightly
Yeah,
recessed
yeah,
display and that seal, and then that's where dust and gunk builds up around,
yeah.
and it
I mean,
gets
most people probably won't notice it, but when it's not there, it's so
you
much nicer
appreciate.
looking. It's just a
Yeah, it's
nicer looking bezel.
just why I keep saying with people like I know laptop 3 is like actually the price is pretty good. Like Microsoft's been like way more aggressive on cutting its prices lately, which has been nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, comparatively, I'll still say the Spectre X360 is like the best laptop to get right now for price and value. But the thing is, it's like when you get a Surface laptop, like, yeah, it doesn't have Thunderbolt 3,
Mm.
it doesn't have an HDR display and all. But there's something just about the ergonomics and how it all works together that is just unparalleled for laptops, which is why I think Zach and I still prefer it compared to some other laptops. But there are risks involved here.
Yeah.
So, real briefly, Windows 10 update issues. I'm not really too familiar with this topic, but apparently there's been some reporting of another issue with Microsoft updates. Microsoft acknowledged a deletion bug that's present in the latest Windows update. For some people, Windows 10 KB4532693 deleted all files on the desktop and caused the start menu and settings to boot up in their default state. Well, that sounds pretty unfortunate. A lot of people still use the desktop as a dumping ground, right? You just put your folders and icons, and
I
it's just
hate
a
those people.
mess.
No, I'm just...
I know. Zach and I both like do the hide menu. If you
Oh
right
yeah,
click and you
it's
hide
gone.
items on your desktop, but a lot of people still do use like that. So yeah, I could imagine if you're one of those people rebooting your PC, finding all those files gone as well as your start menu reset could be infuriating. And you know, I don't know what to say about this, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's a problem. It's a problem for Microsoft because Microsoft has had quite a rough 12 to 18 months when it comes to Windows updates, Windows 10 updates specifically, even Windows 7 actually, thinking about it. There's been quite a few updates that have caused problems. It was first the feature updates, which are deleting files, and now we're at a point where even the little updates are causing problems here and there. Now, Microsoft made a big deal last year how they are changing how they test and build updates for Windows, both feature updates and monthly patches. Yet it doesn't look like that's changed anything because these updates are still being pushed out and these updates are still causing problems. Now, we're never going to be in a world where every single update for Windows comes out and it's bug free. That's just not how software works. There will be bugs in updates. That's just how it's going to be forever. But at this frequently is a little bit of a problem for Microsoft. They definitely have QA issues. And a lot of people point back to the whole idea that Microsoft got rid of their dedicated QA teams years ago. I don't think having an internal QA team would change too much here. Maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know, but yeah, this is a problem for Microsoft's reputation more than anything else. Because I mean, I know for a fact that Microsoft would like to get to a point in which it can release Windows feature updates at any point of the year. It doesn't have to be limited to 2. They could do 4 or 5. But that ties into the whole idea that Windows 10X can do updates super fast, so it's not an issue to the user anyway. But they can't get there if this is still the problem. If they're still unable to release updates that don't cause issues, then, especially file deletion bug issues. Like I understand maybe an animation is missing here, or this button here, this non-vital button doesn't work every time you click it now. But deleting files is one of the biggest sins you can commit when it comes to software. So they need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's even one of the comments, I think it's the first comment in our article, or it's actually now one of the oldest. It's some cases it seems to be more evil than that. My dad, who is 80, his computer installed an update this past weekend. Let's just say things did not go well. When I got there to look at it, he was able to sign into his account in Windows 10. All the other accounts on the computer were gone, mine and my mom's. All installed programs were gone, no backups, nothing Windows old. other than an empty folder, just a computer that looks like it had a fresh install of Windows on it. Well, there you go.
Yeah, could that? I mean, I don't want to say I don't know for a short, but could that have been user error and that they just initiated a system reset and
Yeah,
reinstalled Windows?
could be. Yeah.
Yeah,
But if that's the case, yeah, I mean, this is a tough problem to control. This is just an ongoing problem that Microsoft has in supporting so many. Don't forget, I mean, they're supporting PCs that go back over a
Windows
decade,
7
right?
PCs. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's the tough break you get when Microsoft consciously chose to support for Windows 10 all older hardware versus putting it only on new devices. Only new devices get it, right? So that's where Windows 10X in theory should be a much better experience, and it'll only be on new hardware, new devices. It'll be a lot more limited, and the hardware environment will be a lot more controlled. But yeah, this is just it's not something that should be happening in 2020 anymore. Anyway, we'll try to keep an eye on that. If you do have this problem, there's not a whole lot apparently you can do, although we do have in our article for this a brief solution that's a little bit kludgy. It's not exactly fun to do, but it may be able to help you out.
It won't work for everybody, but you may be lucky enough in which you can recover your files. My advice is don't use the desktop as a dumping ground.
Yeah.
No, that's
but
advice.
those old habits in computing are hard. Like we're talking about that today on Twitter. Someone's asking what they recommend for snipping and copy and all that stuff, and I just use the built-in snipping tool. And I combine it with MS Paint. I'm still stuck on MS Paint.
Get over to Paint 3D. Come on.
I know. I can't shake it. I just Paint is my jam.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's turn to new icons. Yes, new icons are coming. Oh, and there goes one of my phones. I forgot to.
Oh, sorry, real quick, before we move on to that, I should probably clarify. Not everybody's hitting this issue. This update has installed fine on a lot of PCs. Some
Yeah, this is it's such a small issue that it's not like an officially acknowledged one, I think.
Yeah, someone in the Microsoft support forums was like, yeah, we're aware, but I don't think Microsoft has come out with an official statement. With that said, I don't even know if the update's been pulled. I think it might still be available to users, so just be careful when you're checking for updates. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I don't know if we made it sound like everyone was hitting this issue because no, not everyone. It's only applicable to 1809, 1903, and 1909. If you're on 2004 or previous, this doesn't appear to be an issue.
Sounds interesting. Anyway, new icons. Let's talk about this quickly. So we've seen Windows 10X, a lot of Windows 10X lately. We saw the new icons on there. It's part of the new launcher design. That is, there's technically no start menu, not in the classic sense of what we've known in Windows 10. And so it's more of like an Android thing. And we saw the icons. They're bright, they're colorful, they're flat, but they're nice looking. And so apparently now these icons are coming to Windows 10.
Yeah.
They started rolling out in the Windows 10 Fast Ring. If you're on release preview, which I always recommend, I put almost all my devices in that. It's very safe. You will get this new icon for the mail and calendar applications, which is pretty cool. But the big news here, of course, so Zach, explain this a little bit. So one, should users expect these icons eventually to come to just Windows 10 desktop, or is this a case because they're in Fast Ring that this is one of those features that they're testing in Windows 10 but may not actually come to Windows 10? And what does this mean for live tiles?
Sure. So these icons will definitely be coming to Windows 10 officially. Microsoft sort of announced that this week. The icons are from Windows 10X. They were designed with Windows 10X's aesthetic in mind. Actually, I bet that's not entirely true. They came from Office. Office was sort of the first to pioneer this icon design or aesthetic, and the Windows team said, we like that, and have decided to adopt it everywhere. I actually really like the icon design. The colorful icons, as Microsoft calls them internally, I think they look really nice. But they will be coming to Windows 10. So, like Dan said, if you're in the release preview ring, they have rolled out to the mail and calendar apps already via the Microsoft Store. If you're in the fast ring, a bunch more apps have got them already. So things like alarms, voice recorder, photos, Weather, I believe, is getting it very soon. Groove Music, Film and TV, all of them have got the new icons as well. Not every single app yet. They are rolling out sort of in waves by the looks of things. But I believe by the end of this development cycle for desktop, most icons should have it. And since, they're icons, they can roll out as app updates. So maybe even, the current shipping version of Windows will get them this year as well, which will be nice to see. But this has raised a good question among fans. About live tiles, because if you take a look at the new icons when they're placed in a live tile that isn't live, so just a square tile, they don't look that great. And we've talked about this before on the podcast, the sort of the future of live tiles and where we think live tiles are headed. And I wrote an article ages ago, I think back in 2018 maybe, sort of suggesting that live tiles were dead, because I'd heard some things internally at the time, back when Windows 10 X was codenamed Windows Lite. I was hearing that doesn't have live tiles, and then I was looking around all the other versions of Windows that are out there for HoloLens and Xbox, and none of them have live tiles either. The only place where live tiles are these days is desktop, and I wouldn't argue live tiles are that important on desktop, especially since they're in a menu. They're not exactly glanceable, which is the whole point of live tiles on phone, is that there was a glanceable UI. When you unlocked it, you could see everything that was going on at once. That idea goes away entirely when they're tucked away in a menu, because most users don't really open the start menu. They pin all of the apps they use to the taskbar and never think about it again. And even less people than that customize the live tiles. Me and Dan we've mentioned this many times. Me and Dan have seen internal documentation, a few years old now, but I don't think it's changed too much, that suggested that very few people customize their live tiles. And that's because users don't really care or want them. And lots of people find them confusing. Market research has suggested it's too noisy. People lose track of where they've placed icons on the live tile UI because they're constantly changing with new information and stuff. People like a static visual icon because they know what it is. So I think what we're seeing here is Microsoft slowly but surely stepping away from the live tile idea, which is a shame, don't get me wrong. But I honestly think it's a good thing. In the long run, I would much rather a start menu UI like one on Windows 10 X, pretty much one that's very simple to sort of customize. You just sort of drag an icon where you want it and it stays there. It doesn't change or update or move and stuff. And I also just think the current Windows 10 start menu is not that pretty, in my opinion.
There's also just an interesting argument here that I saw mentioned a few times that I thought was pretty poignant, which was live tiles kind of came out in an age where CPU performance on devices wasn't that great. So what live tiles were kind of neat for, especially like on Windows Phone, Windows Phone was really the driver of this paradigm, and it made sort of more sense there. But it was this idea of sort of glance and go, as they call it. You turn on the display and you can just sort of look around and you can just get the latest headlines, all that. But I think what people usage has changed in the sense that launching an app now on most smartphones is so fast that there's not a huge advantage between the two. I still think there's a benefit on phone, and I think the Windows Phone paradigm would have been sort of cool to still have now. But definitely on desktop, most people are, between notifications coming in, don't forget when Windows Phone launched, actually when Windows Phone 7 launched, notifications were like a big thing. It was actually they weren't pushed. They could only come in at a certain times. Not all apps had them. And the idea was sort of the live tile system was the push notification. That was the original idea behind it. But then notifications really became sort of the big way of doing it. If you look at the evolution of Windows Phone, there was also no action center, right? That was the other thing. But it was only with the addition of the notification shades that came through on Android, and eventually iPhone got that. This idea of you start grouping all your notifications together and you would see them. And then it almost got more crazy because then we got interactive notifications. You could reply within the notification and delete or send. You could start to. So when you combine that with the live tile paradigm, it became almost redundant, right? And so I think that's even if you think on Windows 10 now, how do you get your information while you're working? Well, a pop-up notification comes through, right? And that seems to be the way we work now. And that's why I think live tiles don't really make sense in this sort of world. Had notifications, notification shades, interactive notifications not come along, live tiles would have been, I think, a lot more interesting. But everybody caught up onto this idea of grouping your messages together in an action center kind of model. And even Windows 10 and Windows Phone adopted that. So, but these new icons, I don't want to debate the looks of them too much because it's all
Yeah.
subjective.
I like
This is
them.
why, yeah, I like them too. I think they look really nice. I like the color, especially because like the Mail app now has got this nice little blue. People are like, why are they so blue? I don't know why they're so blue. I like
Uh,
blue icons. It's neutral. Like,
yeah, so I believe, and I may be wrong, but I think Microsoft internally calls that color blue communication blue. That's what
oh,
they call it internally, and it's you might notice that blue is used quite a lot when it comes to Windows. Like the Windows logo is blue, and I can't remember why, but they've done research on it, and I don't know, it's just some conscious thing that people sort of are enlightened by this specific shade of blue, which is probably why they're in a lot of icons now. Because I don't know.
yeah. I don't disagree with that, actually. I think it's a very soft, neutral, pleasant. Don't forget, like red is actually associated with anger and rage a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I don't mean associated and that's what you think of. I mean in the sense that there are a lot of studies about what colors evoke in terms of emotion. This is why they actually tell you. There's a lot of literature on this, by the way. It's really interesting. Like when you're if you go see a brand new house, see the colors that they use for painting the rooms. Like mine is this like neutral blue gray almost. Um, but it's more towards white. It's very subtle. But this is why like you don't see bedrooms painted red, for instance. But you will see often sort of a blue hue or a yellow hue. These are more calming colors. And so there's a lot of science around this stuff about like and like purple is kind of divisive and no one paints their room black unless you're like an emo kid who's 16 and thinks it looks awesome. But it is interesting. So I like these icons. If you don't like them, I don't know. Sorry,
If
life's
you don't like
hard.
them, buy a Mac.
Yeah, buy a Mac, right? Yeah, I mean, because when I look at the iPhone's icons, I'm not like, wow, that's the standard. Like,
Mm.
okay.
Oh, I
In
actually
fact,
really hate iPhone icons. I hate.
a
Actually, I
lot of
say
the
that.
iOS design feels very. I mean, there's been a debate about going on this recently about skeuomorphic versus now there's this new movement called neo skeuomorphic, which is actually looks kind of cool.
Mm.
But skeuomorphic has definitely died off, and that's what still a lot of icons are still on iOS apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
this is why on Android, by the way, like what makes Android popular is the fact you can often skin it or
yeah.
do your own icon packs. Now, if you look at the sheer variety of icon packs, it goes to tell you there's no universal agreement about what's a good icon. So, like, I've seen some people. Actually, I'm always amazed on Samsung. So Samsung has their own store with theme store, and you can go download themes for your phone. And whenever I browse through that store, I think of like these are the same people who are on XDA. I feel like a lot of these people who download these themes like drive Camaros. It's just corny, cheesy stuff, Lamborghinis and flames, and it's just all stuff that was like neat. I thought like in the 2000s when smartphones and PDAs were around. So there's no accounting for
Yeah.
taste here, but yeah.
Real quick before we move on from this, I do want to talk a little about the live tiles just a bit more because I've talked to a lot of people on Twitter about this. There's a lot of people on Twitter, of course, who are sort of advocates of live tiles. They love them. They think that they're a much better UX compared to a static grid of icons that you find on basically every other platform. But going back to the whole research thing, Microsoft has done the research, and I would say everybody, but a lot of people don't like live tiles. Again, they find them confusing or noisy or blah blah. There's a whole load of reasons why they're not favored. Those who do like live tiles only. I'm not sure what they're seeing because if live tiles really was a better way of doing things, other platforms would have adopted it by now. This
Right.
isn't a new UI that's only just come about. Live tiles have been around for 10 years, 10 years of live tiles. Yet Apple, Google, any other person who makes a platform or operating system or UI in general hasn't adopted this.
Yeah.
If it really worked and was really better than a static grid of icons, people would have copied this by now. Apple would have done it. Google would have tried to do it, but nobody has done it. Everybody is stuck with, just a grid of icons does the job because it does the job. It works. Users see that UI and know what to do.
And you can thank Palm OS for that.
Yeah, sure. But like that's really what it comes down to. The grid of icons, although it may not be as fun to look at, it gets the job done and is simple to use. And that's the number one thing when it comes to designing UI and UX. Is it simple and intuitive to use? that's what beats everything else.
And you made a valid point. I mean, live tiles are like 10 years old, right? I mean, so that's important in the sense that like even if they were modestly successful, like a 10-year-old UI paradigm, like at what point do you change things up? At what point does I was just talking about how iOS was kind of skeuomorphic. This was a thing that was pushed by what's his name there? The guy from Apple.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. I don't say the phrase Steve Jobs very often.
Yeah.
But that was a thing he pushed, right? He thought it was a design thing. And you can make that argument, skeuomorphic. At the time when digital was getting big, the idea was let's recreate as much as we can photorealistically with icons for familiarity. Kind of made sense. But now you have this like neo-skeuomorphism and even flat material design, which of course is also borrowed from like the Metro design that Microsoft was pushing, which Microsoft's design came from signage. It came from signage used in airports and train stations. Yeah. So, but there's an argument to me that even if this stuff was modestly successful, at what point do you evolve the system and change? This is why we're seeing these new icon designs. They bring some color back. Like design is fluid, right? Yeah. It's always changing. And so I feel like this stuff needs to change eventually. Now, and with live tiles, I'm tired of sort of the start menu, the live tile thing on Windows 10. It doesn't do anything for me anymore, especially with phone being gone. That said, I'm very much interested in seeing the Windows 10X launcher come to Windows 10. I do hope that happens. I do want to see these icons. I think they look great. I think it would bring a fresh paint to Windows 10. And I think people, because of the familiarity with iOS and Android, those are the only two smartphones on the market or for operating systems. The familiarity with icons and configurability there, I think it's going to be very familiar to users. And so I think it'll be a lot more interesting.
I think what you're seeing Microsoft do with the Windows 10X start menu is sort of make it a hub for getting access to things you're working on. So there's a recents area at the bottom, which is already in the Windows 10 if you go to the search button. For Microsoft's the weirdest decision Microsoft made with Windows 10 UX is splitting up start, search, and recent activities. For some reason, they're all in different areas. In Windows 10X, they're all back in one area, the Start menu, which is exactly where they should be. The Start menu is called Start for a reason. It's where you start activities. That's where you start your search. It's where you start your recent document. It's where you start your apps. So they're finally actually fixing that, which is an issue Windows 10 introduced. The live tiles themselves, I also think developers just didn't adopt them, really. Like, some apps do live tiles. Some of Microsoft's first-party apps do them. Not all of them. Teams doesn't, for example. And some apps do support them, but just in weird ways. Like, for example, I'm seeing Skype has a, air quotes, live tile, but all it is a badge, a number of how many messages you've missed. It doesn't actually show the content of the message or the face or anything. It's just a badge. So it might as well be a static icon with a badge like on iOS or Android. Slack has a live tile, but it doesn't appear to follow any rule of any kind. It's just showing me profile pictures that are in the team that I work with on Slack. Like, it's not of a recent message or anything, although there are recent messages there. I'm seeing messages come now that was sent a week ago. It's just, I don't know how the Slack's live tile works. It just doesn't work how I would expect it to. Spotify's another great example. That doesn't even show your current playing or anything. It just shows, here's some stuff that, that's on the homepage of the Spotify app. They all do it in weird ways. Twitter doesn't even have one. Twitter should definitely have one. It's a social network, but it doesn't.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. There's no reason why the tools exist. Remember chaseable live tiles? I remember being at Build to hear about that. There's and we haven't, there was the actionable ones. They did have a paradigm where eventually you could respond with, and again, I think it made more sense for phone. But without phone in the picture here, right? I think a lot of the momentum and impetus for live tiles just disappeared.
I think you could bring them along into the future by making them something that pops up if you hover over the static icon. So if you take the Windows Next Start menu, for example, and you're using a mouse and you just hover over the weather app icon, for example, that could pop up a UI that has a sort of glanceable bit of information, just like a live tile would. But having the glanceable piece of information as the actual launcher icon is a terrible idea, in my opinion, on desktop or a tablet or Windows 10X. So that's how they could do it. They could bring them along as sort of hoverable widgets, but otherwise, they shouldn't be the actual main UI anymore.
And also, I just want to point out, don't forget, it's not always greener on the other side. iOS, had the 3D push thing where you'd push out on the icon and give you, and it's a kind of a brilliant system because they had a really nice haptic feedback because Apple's haptic engines are on a whole other level. And it was really a neat thing that I never used. And I forgot it existed. And a lot of people did, which is why they pulled it out, right? So this was like a whole brilliant thing. They did hardware, they did software and developers, and some developers took advantage of it. But it's just, and I don't even know why. I don't know why. The idea of like pressing on an icon for like, say, Outlook, and then just doing a shortcut to new mail to me seems, yeah, I should want that. I should be using that all the time, and yet I never did. And so, like, it goes to show you sometimes how, this stuff conceptually sounds really genius, just like Continuum sounded genius.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us made the argument, like, yeah, this should work. This should be something people want. And people didn't. And then Samsung tried it. They have Samsung DeX, and I've never even tried it. I think the Galaxy Z Flip does it. I don't know. I've never tried it. And I again, you'll find some people who are like, oh, but DeX is awesome. I use it all the time. But the stands don't sell, the docks and all that, they don't sell. Huawei has a version of this. I've used it like once or twice. It was more by accident when I was just trying to stream media to my TV. I was like, oh, wow, there's a whole desktop here. It's weird how certain things conceptually seem like they should just work and we should be wanting them, and yet we don't. Anyway, yeah, someone's killed Jump List too. Yeah, Jump List is similar. It's very similar to what iOS was doing. And I agree. Jump List, I use them, I see them, and I'm like, damn, these things are awesome. And I never use them. I don't know. Humans are weird. We're not a very smart species. All right, let's wrap up the icons. Let's talk about your phone real quickly. So, and we'll mix this in with the Z Flip. You and I both have a Galaxy Z Flip we're testing. We both bought them.
Yes.
So this isn't like, we're not on Samsung's review, roundtable here for phones. So we don't get them for review. Although if they want to, apparently even a Z Flip, apparently they were giving out like 24-hour loaners. They're very hard to get. You and I both got them pretty early because we got our orders in early, which was nice. I've been using it for a week. Let's talk about the Z Flip first, and we'll talk about your phone after. So the Z Flip, foldable phone here. It's why we're interested in it is because it's sort of this paradigm shifting of like foldable devices and how they work in our lives. Obviously, Microsoft has the Surface Duo coming. Now that's a dual screen device, but it still folds. And so there's still there's definitely overlap there, including experience between the two. I'll quickly share my thoughts and I'll let Zach go. So I think the hardware it's immaculate. It's really just beautiful hardware. I'm going to say, right off the bat, this is the device that will go down in history as where foldables started going mainstream. Yeah. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying everybody should go buy this device. In fact, at $1,400, you really need to be an early adopter to get this thing. The S20 Ultra is $20 more, and you're getting way more phone out of there. Bigger battery, bigger display, 120 hertz display, much better cameras. It's just, but it's also a huge phone. But then if you don't want to do that, you can just save yourself $400. You just get the S20, and you're still going to get a 5G phone. So this is definitely an early adopter thing, but they did such a nice job overall with it. Like I said, this will go down as the device that people go back, just like the Razr flip phone was so iconic. This is the phone that people are going to remember for really setting off the foldable thing. My biggest complaint, it's so slippery. Zach and I were talking about, there's actually a video of me floating around while I was on Twit last weekend on last Sunday. Yeah, I was like opening it and I just dropped it. Now I'm on a rug and stuff like that. So the phone is totally fine, not even a scratch. I do have the TPU case on there, which is actually a really nice looking TPU case. You can't even tell it's on there. But that case is just as slippery. It's so slippery. It's really infuriating because then when you go to open it, and hopefully I won't drop it, it does basically require two hands. But now it's a two-handed bar of soap you're opening, which, is scary sometimes. So, and let's talk about that. Opening the phone. Yeah. It's a barrier to entry. Like if this is the benefit of having something like my iPhone here, right? It's just a phone. You just pull it out of your pocket and it's just there. You can look at the screen. Apple does a really nice job with the face unlock, where if I'm not looking at it, I see I have notifications, but I can't read them. Like if it's not me, but if it's me, the face unlock then magically shows me what those messages are. It's a much more fast system. So there's definitely a trade-off there. That said, the benefit is also significant. I mean, this feels way better in my pocket to carry around. And, when you combine it with something like your phone, so when you're at your PC or even on my Surface Pro X, I'm out about, I don't actually need to open the phone that often. So I can get my notifications in, I get my SMS in, I can get my phone calls, I can even do right through the computer. So I don't actually need to open up the phone that often. But battery life has been better than expected. Not amazing battery life. I don't want to confuse the two. If you're like a person who works on the phone all the time and you're always snapping photos on that, this is probably not your device. An S20 Ultra would be much better for that. But this is, make no mistake, like a fashion phone, right? This is for casual use with people who have money. In that sense, the battery life actually, I think between at least 5 to 7 hours of screen on time.
Yeah, I can get through a day using it.
Yeah, yep. Of course, you do have fast charge on there. You do have Qi wireless charging, which is also very helpful. Mm-hmm. The cameras are very good on it. I'm actually surprised. They're more like the S10 cameras in terms of hardware, but they do have the optimizations from the S20 series.
I've read somewhere that the actual camera sensors are from the S10. They are the exact same sensors. They've just updated the software, like computational photography, to improve it slightly. But some reviews have said it hasn't changed much. It's still a good camera. It's just not competing with the iPhone 11 Pro Max or the S20.
It does pretty well though. I mean, I like the sharpness. Some of the low light performance is good. The smart stuff that's in there, that's part of the S20 series, is really nice. I'm actually happy with the cameras.
Yeah, me too.
You get that little display on the outside, little teeny display. It's cute. Gives you the time, battery life. You can see some notifications. It also has music controls on there. It's actually pretty helpful. But yeah, I mean, my biggest thing, honestly, the phone would be better. And this is why I was interested in your discussion about the Galaxy Watch. If I had a reliable smartwatch that could do more with it, the Fitbit is just not that. I get basic stuff, but I think the Galaxy Watch would be a better solution. In terms of screen durability, there's been a debate whether it's glass or not.
It is glass. It's just the thinnest of glass you can get, so it basically loses all of its sturdiness.
Yeah, and I don't have any scratches. I do have what I can only describe as like something that's thinner than a human hair, little scratch, but you can only see it if you're like you have the screen off and you're reflecting it in the light and have to hunt for it.
I don't have anything yet.
Yeah, it's like, I can't see it right now because there's more fingerprints on the display, and so like I can't see it. So it's I mean, this is like no big deal, but that's a concern, right? I mean, this display is more fragile. Now, the benefit, of course, is you close it all the time, but I would say cut your nails when you use this phone.
Yeah. It's the same as the Galaxy Fold. So the Galaxy Fold, two issues you've mentioned, Dan. First, not being able to use it when it's closed, and the fragile screen. The first one, the Galaxy Fold actually solved with its screen on the outside. Now, I'd argue that screen on the outside is still too small, but you could use the Galaxy Fold while closed on that screen. It's still just enough. You can have it on like a fast charger or wireless charger, and when notifications come in, you can see them just like an iPhone and stuff. And you can actually use the phone whilst it's closed on the Galaxy Fold. The Galaxy Flip can't do that because the screen on the outside is too small. It's essentially like a glance screen more than an actual screen to use the phone. I personally don't mind. I don't mind opening the phone to see things. And again, I'm wearing a watch, so perhaps that alleviates the problem Dan's having. But the Galaxy Fold solves that, and I assume the Galaxy Fold 2, whenever that comes out, will have a much bigger display on the outside, which will make it a good phone as well as a good foldable tablet. You're right about the screen. I used a Galaxy Fold for about 2 months, and I didn't want to see any things on it. I didn't break it or have any indents and stuff. And I used the phone I even dropped the Galaxy Fold a couple of times, and it was fine. Like, these screens are more fragile. I'm not saying that they're perfectly robust, but I think the media's put a little bit too much emphasis on the fragility of the screen. I think I've used these like normal. I've not once been like, oh, I better baby the screen and the cartridge. I've just been using it like normal. If you're not an animal, you should be fine. Just don't be smashing the screen into things and stuff. Just use it like a normal $1,000 or even more $1,000 smartphone. Just use it like an expensive smartphone, and you should be okay with it. Like mine's been fine so far, in my opinion. I do wish though, because it is $1,400. If they could have hit the $1,000 range with this, it would have been incredible. Like this is a really this is the best foldable that's out of the Galaxy Fold and the Motorola Razr. This is the best one so far. And I also agree with Dan. This is the phone that will be remembered in history as the phone that proves foldable smartphones can be done and done well. But if they came in at $1,000, oh my god, this would have broken so many records. I think I know why they didn't know, because I think they could have made this for $1,000, because I don't think it costs more than $1,000 to make. They probably made it more expensive because they don't want everybody going out and buying it. They don't want normal people considering it as an option because of its, the screen and stuff being less robust, and also because maybe they're having stock issues as it is. I imagine building a device like this takes a little bit more time than building a standard slab phone. And if it was at $1,000, everybody would buy one, and then they'd be out of stock for months, because this was already out of stock in a lot of places. Probably because they didn't make many, but maybe that's because this is hard to make. I think there's a reason why it's $1,400 and not $1,000, even though I think this could have been made for $1,000.
Yeah, possibly. It is definitely. I haven't checked the stock today. I think they're supposed to be getting more in, but yeah, I mean, this sold out basically very quickly. Now I say sell out, of course, and it's more about not a lot of stock to begin with. But it seems to be, which is interesting. So if you go read, a lot of people are doing rolling reviews and ongoing reviews, initial impressions, and surprisingly, most reviews, almost all reviews, have been very positive about it.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because, for the most part, this is a normal smartphone. The thing that it does special is the fact that it folds, and it does the fold well. It's not like a creaky hinge, or there's no problem with it. It folds very, very well. The only air quotes issues that this phone has is with the fragility of the display. But outside of that, it's a perfectly normal smartphone, and that's why it's getting so many good reviews.
And I just want to hold it up because this position is just so wild.
Yeah,
this is like the mini laptop position. So this is how I keep it at my desk most of the time. I have it powered on right now, but I can actually turn it off, and it has there it goes, the always on display comes on and just shows your notifications, your clock, I think your battery life. And it's just kind of cool to leave it like that. It's also really good for using this as for video calls, because you can just place it down on the desk and you can use the video calls. They are starting to have apps that split. So like, was it the Duo, Google Duo? Is that what it is? Yeah, their app.
Yeah.
The top half will be video, the bottom half are controls, and it naturally detects when the phone is in this position and will split. It's pretty wild. And we're supposed to see more apps like that. It does that for the Samsung Gallery too, which is pretty wild. You can see your photo in the top half, and then the bottom half is just for navigation for your thumb. And when I use this at my desk, I leave it like that, connect it to your phone. So let's talk about your phone now. Microsoft, what Samsung and Microsoft have a partnership here. What that means is your phone is built into the ROM for Samsung devices, for newer ones. They actually call it linked to Windows. And because of that being built in, one, you don't need to download the app, which is pretty cool. But it also means it's more efficient. They get access to deeper level OS stuff, including Wi-Fi Direct. So I was really impressed. So I mentioned I've been covering your phone. It's been out for almost 2 years now. It used to be on iOS. It's not on iOS anymore. Apple doesn't allow Microsoft access that it needs to make that feature useful on iOS. So they basically got rid of it, which is a shame, but that's on Apple, not Microsoft. Apple locks down everything. But on Android, it's been very good. It supports on all Android devices, basically all new ones. But with Samsung, they get this deeper level access. You get Wi-Fi Direct, so it's super fast. It's really neat to be able to use the screen mirroring feature and control your smartphone, and how instant it is. And you can use your keyboard. I can actually open apps and respond and do all that kind of stuff. You have, of course, notifications. You can take and receive phone calls through your computer. And it's neat because I have it set up on my desktop. I also have it set up on my Pro X. So and it just switches between them. It automatically syncs, and it's just it's been very reliable. I like how you can customize notifications. So, for instance, I don't need dual Slack notifications. If I'm on the Pro X, I want to get Slack notified anyway. I don't need the phone one too, so I can just turn off what apps I want to show notifications. Again, that's kind of crucial. New feature introduced this week that's in the release preview version is the ability for copy paste, which is kind of nice.
So
Still,
have you tried that yet? How does it work?
Yeah, it's kind of rough. It's I haven't really. I can definitely take text from the PC and then paste it to like a something on the phone, right? So I can highlight text that way. Apparently, you can do it with photos too. I haven't really
Oh yeah.
tried though.
So I just tried it. So I wrote test and then copied it on the phone. And if you open
Yeah,
the Windows clipboard on PC with the Windows key and V, you have to enable that in settings if you haven't done that yet. But if you go into settings, general, is it? Settings, give me a sec, I'll open it. System, go down to clipboard and turn on both when it loads. Wow, this is... It's my PC is stuck loading the clipboard area in settings. There we go. If you turn on clipboard history and sync across devices, then whenever you copy on one device, it should show up as a paste option on the other device. And on PC, if you press Windows V, you can actually see a history of your copy paste as well. So I just copied test on the phone, and now I'm seeing it in the Windows V UI, which is the clipboard history UI on PC, which is actually kind of cool. If you're trying, if you got passwords or something, that's nice to have, so you can just copy paste across devices. Yeah, that actually works surprisingly well. I thought it wasn't going to work at all.
yeah. So it's a little confusing because you don't get right click on your phone, so you can't I want to right click and paste, right? But you don't get that menu. So there needs to be some things that worked out there. But still, that's a feature of just Samsung and Microsoft because Microsoft gets a level of access on Samsung phones that isn't generally available on Android phones. So that's pretty clever. But yeah, with the folding part, like I said, you get a Samsung S20 Ultra, you could do this stuff too. It's not the flip, but because of the flip's pop-up design there with that little half laptop clamshell, if you're listening to this recorded, by the way, I'm talking about it's a 90-degree. The flip basically looks like a little laptop. When you're working at a computer and you have it there, it acts as a second screen is basically what it does. And it opens the door for all sorts of interesting things. Now, tying this into like Surface Duo could do this as well, right? Because it's a hinged device. So with the second screen, you can basically fold it so it looks like a Nintendo dual screen DS type device. Now, we haven't heard anything about what Microsoft's doing in this regard. Now, the good news is if you get to Duo, you're going to get like pretty much all these functions too, probably even more, right? Because because Microsoft then really controls everything. So your phone experience with the Duo should be as good, if not better, than what Samsung's doing. But I'd really like to know what they're planning around this idea of like having a dual screen secondary device next to you at your PC with that screen open. How they're going to leverage that at all. Like, for instance, does the Duo have an always-on display? I don't know. We haven't heard. So I love – this is one of those things where I like to be like, yeah, of course Microsoft has definitely thought of this problem and has a really cool solution, and they've come up with an ingenious way to use the Duo while at a PC. But this is Microsoft, and, sometimes I feel like – they're going to be like, oh, well, that's something we're looking at in 2021. And, and that's a shame because I feel like I love for them to surprise me here and like really take your phone and the Duo to a new level since they're kind of controlling everything.
I don't think we're going to see... regarding the hardware, I don't think we're going to see too much outside of the whole idea that it's a foldable is like the new thing that it's bringing to the table. But I don't think the Surface Duo, I don't think they thought of everything with the Duo, like the outer screen. There's no outer screen, for example, or an external camera, both which will probably be issues for a lot of people because having to open the phone every time to see a notification is going to be rough. Now I have heard that there is a UI Microsoft is building in, so if you open it a little bit, your notifications sort of appear on the very side of the device, so you don't have to open it all the way. But that's not going to help you if your phone's on the desk over there and it's closed and it's buzzing away. That's going to be an issue, which would be solved with a smartwatch. But if it had an outer display, that would be much preferred. But at the same time, an outer display I think ruins the design. I think the Surface Duo looks amazing when closed. It's a very simple modern design, and I really like it. But yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll hear more about that. Now, at some point about the fragility of the display. I mean, again, this is why I say the Z Flip. I can't recommend people drop everything and
No,
go buy
yeah.
this phone, right? It's definitely early adopter stuff. You're a trendsetter, you have disposable income, you're a fashion person, and you want the latest and greatest tech because you will like living on the bleeding edge. That's, a lot of people in tech, that's what we do. And for those people, I mean, it's worth consideration. That said, it's slippery as hell. I'm looking. I have a casemate case coming in. There are now cases slowly rolling out to the market. It's actually funny. The accessory offerings for the Z Flip right now are not very much existent because Samsung did a pretty good job of keeping a secret up until the last month. But we're starting to see accessories roll out for it. I'm hoping is the casemate case, which I'll review. I'll put that on Android Central. I hope that case gives me some grip and a little bit more confidence when holding and using it. But it's a neat phone. Like I said, there are definitely trade-offs. We just talked about those. The display, in terms of holding up after 2 years, yeah, it's a good question. Who knows? Probably. I mean, obviously, this is the beginning, right? This is why I said with LCD displays, I had an LCD monitor in the year 2000, I want to say, and then back then it was pretty cutting edge, and it got dead pixels, and that was just. The companies were shrugged, yeah, if you have 5 to 10 dead pixels, that's actually acceptable. That's just part of the way it is. Now that'd be unacceptable, right? So all this stuff, it's something to be concerned about. I'd also say Samsung has two things. One, they're offering a free screen protector service that they'll put on a screen protector for you, which is something. And if the display breaks, it scratches, it's really bad. You do get a one-time, I think it's was $189.
I think it was $110. I thought.
Or maybe $110, something like that, where they'll replace the whole display for you, the whole thing, right? Yeah. That's nice. I wish it was you only get it once apparently, but if you think about it, after 2 years, maybe my display now is scratched and it doesn't crack apparently. It's very hard to crack. You'll crack the outside before you crack the inside. But let's just say the screen gets really messed up at some point. Yeah, you could then send it to Samsung or to certain stores that will then do a replacement for you, which that's not a cheap thing. And if you got insurance, I'm sure it'd probably cover it too. But it's a $1,400 phone. So if it's $150 or $180, whatever it is,
that's not a lot.
To me, that seems very fair. It's because that's not a warranty breakage, right? That's you screwed it up, they'll replace it. So I feel comfortable in that, right? To have that as a recourse.
Yeah, but, and this is only early day stuff. Once in a few years' time, when foldable phones are more mainstream, they'll be cheaper to buy to begin with. They'll be sub $1,000 foldables. We can't wait for that day. Although technically, the Escobar Fold,
right? Yeah, the Escobar Fold,
$400 Galaxy Fold you can buy.
Yeah, apparently it's an overstock Galaxy Fold that sells for $400.
It's probably a scam.
I don't know. Unbox Therapy showed it.
Yeah, but that's because he's Unbox Therapy. I'm sure they saw that order come in and we should probably make this look real. Yeah.
Yeah, so who knows? But yeah, the future is very interesting. Like I said, probably shouldn't go buy this phone, but this is the moment where the stuff starts going mainstream. Yeah. We are expecting this year, in a few months actually, of course, Lenovo's X1 ThinkPad X1 Fold, which will be a really interesting device. Mm-hmm. We'll be definitely getting that. And then we got the Duo coming, and we got the Neo coming, and so it's a thing. But there's trade-offs.
There will be trade-offs. I'm very excited about the Duo, though. I can't wait to be using a Microsoft phone again, even though I know it's Android. It's still a Microsoft phone.
Yeah. I may still, like I said, my thing with Samsung seems to be, I don't like the fingerprint reader
on the side. I tell you what, it's better than the in-display one.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I had to re-record it 2 or 3 times because it's so thin.
Yeah. That
when you record it, you're oh yeah, this is my fingerprint. But then when you actually use the phone, where your finger actually lands, it tends to be different. And so I've had to do that.
I've got face. I set up the face unlock as well because it's just quicker.
Yeah, and the face unlock is okay, but it's not Apple face unlock.
No, it's not. It's not secure.
It's not
it's
secure.
There for convenience.
Anyway, let's move on quickly. Surface Pro X. So this is interesting. As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, here, one of our writers, Dan Thorpe, Lancaster, recently picked up the Surface Pro X. He saw me with it. We were at CES together, and I was like, hey, check this thing out, because he hadn't really seen it much in person. He had an issue with his Surface Book 2 where it got exposed to liquid, apparently. I believe it was from his brother. And so it stopped working and he had a lot of issues with it. Now, I also sent Dan a desktop PC, which is very powerful. So he ended up using the desktop PC and he would use, that was a lot of his main work. And then he would use the Surface Book 2, both for travel, sometimes if you just want to switch in the house. Surface Book 2 broke. And he's like, all right, maybe I'm going to try the Pro X. And he went in to buy, I was like, just go down to Best Buy. You can pick it up. If you don't like it, they have like a 14 or 21 day. It was 14 day, I think, but he has Best Buy rewards thing. And I think it's like 45 days to use it. I was like, if you don't like it, try for a week, return it, get what you want, And he's like, yeah, because he was definitely interested in it. But he went in there with that mindset. He was going to return it. He bought it. End up liking it a lot. In fact, he only got the 8 gig version. I believe he eventually returned it and got the 16 gig version to add a little bit more future proofing to it. And so he wrote an article basically explaining this. Now, of course, the interesting story is he switched from Surface Book 2 to Surface Pro X. Now, he still has a desktop computer now when he really needs to do heavy lifting stuff, but the point still stands. Like he's using the Pro X and he's like, oh, he got it for the reasons you should get it. One, you just like the design. You want, a 2-in-1 that looks like the Surface Pro, which I think is just an amazing design. But he really wanted LTE and long battery life. And those are the two things that the Pro X does over the Pro 7. I've said it before, the Pro X gets around 20% more battery life than the Pro 7 does. We also get LTE. Now, if you're one of those people like, if I want internet, I'll just tether my phone. All right, that's cool. You're one of those people then that, well, either two things. Either you just don't use LTE very often on your phone or your tablet, in which case that's a fine solution, or you're just a glutton for punishment if you do use it all the time, because it's a terrible way to, I think, work. Always have to fire up your phone, turn on the hotspot, connect up, and you get to work. Because part of the problem there is LTE through tethering is never as fast as LTE direct. It just isn't. Like the Surface Pro X has a very good modem in it, and it can swallow data, and it just gets a very good connection. But the idea of it's just, you just turn it on, and it's just, you're connected to the internet wherever you are instantly is, if that's the way you work, it's very important. And people will tell me, you should just tether. It's like, you don't understand. I know my workflow. I've tethered. I know what it's like. This is better. No one's going to convince me otherwise. And I think if you rely purely on tethering, you're missing.
The problem with tethering is that it drains your phone's battery considerably.
It drains
and the
battery,
benefit,
it's hot.
The benefit of having it native on the tablet is that since it's ARM, it doesn't power off when you press the power button. It goes to sleep, so it's still receiving notification like a phone does. So when you power it back up, all your emails and calendar alerts and stuff, the notifications, they're all there. They've all been pulling from the internet the whole time. Whereas if you're tethering from a phone, you're draining your battery, and then you've probably turned the tether off when you stop using the tablet. You put it back in your bag, you go wherever it is you're going. If it was built into the device, that tablet's still connected, still pulling in data and stuff. But if you're just tethering from your phone, you've turned off that tether because you're not using it on the tablet no more. So there's that. There are the benefits of having dedicated LTE in the Surface Pro X.
And then a lot of people also tell me that, like, well, yeah, but Wi-Fi is everywhere. I'm like, yeah, Wi-Fi also sucks everywhere. Like, I travel a lot, right? I was just in Austin this week. I had stuck in airports and everything like that. I know airports have free Wi-Fi. And don't get me wrong, it's kind of nice to have sometimes. But I can guarantee you my LTE connection is going to be significantly faster. I was just at JFK. I measured the bandwidth on their Wi-Fi. I think it was like 4 down. Right. My LTE is getting 30 and 40 down. Right. It's just like it destroys it. And if I'm just checking email or Twitter, maybe not a big deal. But if I'm actually trying to work, yeah, that matters. It matters. Right. So anyways, go check out. I thought he also did a fair article. He did criticize the eSIM experience, which for the most part is pretty good. But I told him to try Sprint because Sprint, they're not a great carrier, but they are offering this deal. It's $15 for unlimited 4G, which is awesome to have on the Pro X. It's not the fastest LTE, but I easily get 20 down on there and 20 up. But he had problems, and this was more on Sprint's end. Their portal and all this was just very confusing, and he got very frustrated. Eventually just got, I think, an AT&T SIM. And it's true, the eSIM experience Windows 10 needs to be improved. It's nowhere near what like Apple's iPad is. Like if you get the iPad LTE or even the watch with LTE, like their onboarding experience is what you expect from Apple. It's just like click, yep, I agree. And it's like, well, all right, we're contacting your carrier. Da, da, da. All right, you're all good. It's just like that's what's needed. So Microsoft needs some improvement there. But yeah, and now so you talk about the Pro X, but we haven't heard you much talk about it. You haven't shared a lot about it. But how are you using the device? What do you think about it? How is the 64-bit limitation destroying your existence?
I hate it. No, I actually really, really like it. So it's the first Surface Pro I've purchased in a long time. The last Surface tablet I purchased was a Surface Pro 4, and then I sold it pretty quickly for the Surface Book because I just preferred the laptop form factor. I got the Surface Pro X because, for one, it's ARM, and I really, really, really like the idea of Windows 10 and ARM in that it's low power when it needs to be. It's always on, always connected, blah, 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 all that stuff we've talked about before. It has LTE built in, which is another thing that I was really interested in. I really, really, really love the design. They're sort of the almost edgeless display. I haven't got the pen or the Alcantara cover for it. I just got the standard one because I'm a cheapo. I also got the 8 gig model because I'm a cheapo. But
Right.
I kind of wanted to buy that one.
I've used these devices.
Yeah, I
before.
wanted to buy the 8 gig one because I don't think anyone at Windows Central has the 8 gig one, and I just wanted to see if it felt considerably worse, and it doesn't. It feels fine. I think since it's ARM as well, most of what you're going to be doing on this is web browsing and light, word processing. I don't think you're going to be editing videos or anything on the Surface Pro X. And 8 GB is more than enough for my workflow. I've been using it for however long I've had it now, a few weeks, and I'm yet to think, oh, this is slower than I want it to be. So yeah, my main criticism with it so far is the coat of paint they've given it. It's black, matte black, but it's the most fingerprinty matte black I've ever seen. Ever. Just thinking about touching it puts fingerprints on it, I'm pretty sure. It is ridiculous how fingerprinty it is, and also it doesn't fit with the rest of my Surface products, which is
right, you want the platinum. Yeah.
I want the platinum. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I did get the was it D brand, and no, I love how you mentioned D brand. Like, yeah, it's because we're not sponsored by D brand. I wish I were. I did pay $25 for this skin. I wish I didn't have to, but I actually won. The skin works really well for that.
Does
right?
it?
Really, it totally solves the problem. It doesn't make the device thicker, and normally I'm kind of iffy about putting stickers on like laptops and all that because the way it feels, but it actually works really well in the Pro X just because of the design. It just goes on the back in the kickstand, and it just feels natural, and it feels more grippy. I love it. I love the two-tone colors I did orange and black on mine. So I super recommend, if you're buying the Pro X, just pick out a D brand. You'll love the customization options. You're going to love the choices, but it'll make it your own. I think it looks really awesome.
So the other reason why I got the Pro X is because I wanted to see if I could use it without running any apps in emulation. If an app wanted to run in emulation, I wouldn't use it. So Slack is one of those, for example. And what I found here is that what I'm doing is, instead of installing apps, I'm just installing the web apps through Microsoft Edge. Yep. So I'm using Slack, Spotify, Gmail, Airtable, a whole bunch of other services, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want to, the standard ones, Instagram even. They're all apps that I've installed through Microsoft Edge, and it works incredibly. Like, it just works as you would expect. It's fast, it's fluid, they all open up, you click it and it's there. There's no emulation you've got to wait for. And it's working really, really well. I also use the UWP Office apps. I use them everywhere, but they work surprisingly nice.
I just wish they had dark mode.
Yeah, it unfortunately not. The PWAs are supposed to get dark mode though, so maybe you could just use those in the future.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, I'm essentially using it like a Chromebook in most instances. Now, not every app I'm using is a web app, but like I'm using Unigram. Obviously, Microsoft Edge is a web browser. I'm using that as well. Skype is a built-in app, so I'm using that. I can't remember the top of my To-Do. All of the Microsoft ones that support ARM64, I'm using there. But if there isn't an app that's ARM native, whether it's ARM32 or ARM64, then I'm just using the web app because I'm just trying to see if I can get around the emulation. And for the most part, I can. I can't think of any scenario where I've been like, oh, damn it, I actually can't do that here.
Yeah, the only issue I've occasionally had were video games and on Steam, where like something where, I think about 6 out of 10 games I've tried have worked.
Which is, I think that's fine because the Pro X isn't a gaming machine, is it?
Right,
Real.
Although I'm also surprised by how well it does game, because when that GPU is actually pretty powerful on it. But I've been able to play like a lot of the games I care about, including Rocket League plays wonderfully on this device, which you think it should. It plays fine on the Switch too. But I just want to get back to also someone pointed out, and something I left out, which is security too. Another reason why you don't want to use public Wi-Fi, or at least it's a concern, at least for the target audience for this device, a lot of times, which is enterprise business people, is public Wi-Fi is very unsecure. You don't know who's on there, the security level, and if you're transmitting data and it's not encrypted or encryption's been cracked, like people are using packet sniffers and they're just lifting information off of there. Now, I'm not saying you need to be completely paranoid about that, but for people doing sort of like it's not recommended if you're like at the airport, you access your bank account information and you put in your password and login info and all this kind of stuff. Like there's certain things you probably shouldn't do on public Wi-Fi. If you're just using, Twitter or Facebook, it's probably not a big deal, but just be aware of that. That's the reason why LTE is a big deal for enterprise. That's why you see LTE laptops primarily aimed at enterprise. But one, they want their employees to never have the excuse of like, well, I didn't have internet, so I couldn't work. It's like, dude, your thing has LTE. Of course you had internet. The other one is security, though, because LTE is actually very secure. And so it's almost, I don't want to say it is impossible. It's almost impossible, I would think, to break and to crack. So for companies dealing with high level secure government type contracts and real private stuff, sometimes they even restrict users to only use LTE for those reasons. But I don't know. I'm glad to hear, I wrote the review for the Pro X for Windows Central. I was obviously very pro for it. I also did a separate article saying it's my laptop of 2019, my personal one, because it's actually what I still use. I use it every day. It's right here by myself. But it's nice to hear the rest of the team picking theirs up, hearing their feedback, and saying I'm not totally crazy and liking this thing.
You will notice though that I'd say the Surface Pro X is an excellent companion PC. If you have a desktop at home, because I wouldn't be able to do this show if I didn't have my desktop. If I just had a Surface Pro X, we couldn't do this show, for example. So you need to know where it fits in your workflow, because I wouldn't recommend the Surface Pro X to somebody as their only PC, because a lot of people only have a laptop these days, right? And that's it. I mean, some people could definitely get away with having a Pro X as their only PC. Not everybody could. So you need to know what your workflow is and what's required of it before you would go out and buy a Surface Pro X. But if you have a desktop at home and you can do heavy lifting on that, then the Pro X to me is a no-brainer. It's the perfect companion PC. It's the perfect travel device because it's thin, it's lightweight, it has like LTE built in, battery life's great. I just think it's great for travel and stuff. And I actually might sell my Surface Laptop 3. So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I really like the Pro X here. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I also just like the slightly larger display. The 13-inch is just that like slightly bigger and just enough. The cameras are good on it. Yeah, it's just it's still my go-to device. It's actually been making laptop reviews difficult for me because I keep wanting to use it. But there you go. Someone pointed out, I just want to say, Windows 10X would make more sense on the Surface Pro X. I think we're all in agreement on that. Unfortunately, 10X doesn't support ARM yet, and this generation, the Pro X will never get 10X unless someone hacks it on there. But a Surface Pro X 2, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's still maybe a little too early, but I think down the road eventually, I would love it. It would be so much faster.
Yeah,
fluid.
Definitely within the next decade.
Yeah, right, exactly. Someone's also pointing out that they have an issue with their PWAs. I've never had this. That when they only problem with Spotify PWA I have is that it needs to log in every time I try to use it. I've literally never had that problem happen.
I think he might be talking about you have to actually log into the PC, because apparently the Win32 program can play from the lock screen without having to be logged in or something along those lines, which is a weird use case. But I guess if you have a family PC or communal PC, that makes sense. But the web app can't do that.
Yeah, someone else says I have that issue with every PWA through Edge. Yeah, I mean, I think if your PWAs are getting logged out every time, you're probably you probably have your security levels on really high, and it wipes all your cookies, because that's how sites may know you're logged in.
Put it this way, it's not supposed to do that. So there's a problem, and you should look into your Microsoft Edge settings and stuff and try to reset the app maybe. Also, I just want to mention, which is something you pointed out to me, the other thing that Microsoft has finally fixed with the Pro X design is they put a magnet at the top so the keyboard doesn't flop around anymore. Which is like, I'm pretty sure I was asking for that in the Surface Pro 3 when I reviewed that. And They finally did it on the Surface Pro X.
It's those little things that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Pro X. Again, if you live near Best Buy, if you're interested, I'm just saying, just try it out. Like, don't take our word for it. Go try it yourself for a week. I don't know if they have a restocking fee. Someone brought that up. I don't. I've actually one of those people. I rarely return things. I just live with it. But I mean, obviously look into that, right, to make sure. But you can also try the Microsoft Store. They have a better. I don't think they do restocking fees there, but if it's something that's piqued your interest, like don't take our word for it. Just go try it yourself. Try it for a week. See if it works in your workflow. I've actually been amazed. Someone left a comment on Dan's article, talk about how they use it, and they're a developer. I've seen a lot of developers use this thing too, because what a lot of them do is it uses RDP remote to log into another main PC. It's actually way more powerful, like a server, and they do the heavy lifting on there, and they use it through the Pro X.
Kind of like xCloud.
Yeah, kind of like xCloud, right? And so it's just, I mean, some people have some really intricate setups, but they love the idea that the Pro X is this light, thin client, but they can still, someone was using Lightroom through that too. And they're like, I love editing on the Pro X because the display is so color accurate and excellent, but they use their server for all the heavy lifting. I'm like, wow, and because it has LTE, they're always connected. I'm like, that's a niche setup, but it goes to show you just the potential of these devices. But as we move towards that future, that's probably going to be something that's going to happen for everyone at some point. So,
speaking of the future,
and clouds, a nebulous cloud.
Yeah, this stupid thing.
Empyrean Nebulous. It's a alleged Windows 10 on ARM phone coming from a company called Empyrean out of the UK. The phone is called the Nebulous. That's about all we know about it. That's not entirely true. So this was brought to my attention by a developer, Jeremy Sinclair. And so here's the deal. It's looks like a phone. Now this is made out of China. It's going to be what's called white label, so if you want to ever make your own phone or your own PC, you could like go to China and go to these factories, and they basically make generic kind of devices that are experimental and weird. So like those small mini PCs I've had before. And you can order that, and then you can like customize it. You can sort of be like, hey, I'd like a green cover, or I'd like this, or could you move the keyboard? And of course, the more stuff you change, the more expensive it gets. And then you have to order like 10,000 of them, right? To make, you can't just go make me 10. So, but that's how, and this is how a lot of Kickstarter stuff happens, right? So this thing is handheld, 6.19 inch Cosmo display. Don't worry about the Cosmo display. It's just some weird branding thing they're doing. Yeah, it's two 13 megapixel cameras and a 10.5 megapixel front facing or selfie camera. 2K upscaling display, 6,000 milliamp battery. It's nice size. 120 gigabytes of storage, expandable up to 2 terabytes because I think it has micro SD. Front firing 1 centimeter speakers with Dolby. Okay, Windows 10 Pro, headphone jack. Pricing starts around $713. So again, speaks of just a Chinese white label type device. But the big thing here is they're putting Windows 10 and ARM on it, and it's going to apparently run a Snapdragon 845. Now, all of this is kind of weird to me. So there are no Windows 10 and ARM Snapdragon 845 devices. There's a Snapdragon 850, which is made for Windows 10 and ARM. And to be fair, that's basically a Snapdragon 845 that's just clocked differently. So maybe that's what they meant. Although I would think if I was doing my own phone based on this, I wouldn't make that mistake. I would know the difference. And so this company is, they've been working on this for, they said almost 2 years. Who knows? It was originally going to be an Intel phone, but issues there.
But as with all Intel phones, they die.
yeah, basically. Now, some weird things about, so like, okay, is this really a phone? I don't know, because as Zach can speak to more, Windows 10 and ARM doesn't have telephony support. Yeah. It doesn't have the ability to make phone calls.
You used to be able to hack it on. But yeah. I believe Microsoft made a change to the latest 20H1 release, and that doesn't work no more, so you can't do it. So unless it's shipping with an old version of Windows plus a bunch of hacked files so that telephony works, then this isn't going to have native telephony capabilities. It will have LTE, of course, because LTE is supported on Windows 10, but you cannot... Natively, Windows 10 does not support the ability to send SMS or make phone calls or receive phone calls. Yeah,
and same with SMS messages. Although you can receive text
them.
messages. You just can't send them. So that raises red flags to me. But even so, like say this doesn't actually make phone calls. It's actually not a phone. It's just like a Windows 10 and ARM PC that looks like a phone. I mean, that's still interesting, right? I still intrigued by this idea of a full PC that just fits in your pocket that runs Windows 10 and ARM. We have seen devices like that in the past that run on Intel, usually Atom processors and experience. Listen, if you go, Dan, here's a PC with Atom, and here's a PC with ARM, I'll always take the ARM.
Oh,
the ARM's going to be better, So don't forget, ARM gets you more cores. It actually does get multi-core performance. It's way better than an Atom chip any day of the week. So that's still, but we don't know. It's supposedly kind of a phone thing. It's supposed as a custom UI. I don't know what that means. Again, so it's not like
I assume they're building their own shell that will just run in place of the Windows shell. But that means it's not tailored by Microsoft. It's Imperium's own whatever they want to do. They can design it in any which way they like. Their mock-up suggests it'll be a Windows 10X-like taskbar with the Windows 10's live tile UI. The problem with this is Windows 10, like full Windows, just isn't a good experience on small screens. It's not an operating system designed for that kind of screen size. You could build your own shell that is better on that, but that doesn't change the fact that Win32 programs look terrible on it. That you can't change that. That's just the nature of Win32 programs. They look rubbish on small screens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other issue, right? You're running full Windows 10 apps on a little 6-inch display. I don't know. It's not very...
Microsoft Edge isn't UWP up no more on Windows 10. It's a Win32 program. It's not going to look great.
Yeah, I mean, you can scale things, but someone said OEMs can make apps for telephony, etc., just fine. No, I mean, it's not. Make the app. What the hell does the app talk to? You need the stack in the operating system to actually handle LTE and specifically the communication protocols for phone calls. Right. You make the app all you want. It needs something to talk to in the operating
if Windows 10
system.
doesn't have the APIs for telephony, then those apps can't. They can't do it. So, like I said, this used to be a thing. In the older versions of Windows 10, you could do that. You could hack onto the APIs from, I guess, Windows Mobile. I don't know where they got them from, but you could fiddle around with stuff and you could enable telephony on full Windows 10. But Microsoft changed something. They changed the stack in 20H1, so that's no longer possible. I think they just outright removed those capabilities, so you can't even add them back anymore.
And I mean... And let's put all that aside. Like, let's say there's actually a way to hack this on and make it work. And, I don't know if I trust this company to do that, right? I know there are like hackers, out there. Gustav, comes to mind. He's well known for doing these projects and putting Windows 10 and ARM on a Lumia 950. Like, I trust him to make that kind of stuff happen. I don't trust. I don't know what this company is. Like, there's no hacker people, developer people we know who's behind this. They said things like, well, we're talking to Microsoft. I don't know what that. I talk to Microsoft. Would you trust me to build your phone? I don't know what that means. Like, I mean, I guarantee if I go and chase down Microsoft, they're gonna be like, oh, we've never heard of these guys. Like, versus, oh yeah, we have a team of engineers that are working with these guys real closely. We're building stuff for it. I doubt that. Love to be surprised. Listen, if this device ships, and it's even half of what they're kind of promising. We're going to review it. Like, if they want to send us a unit, I'll take a fair shake. If there's anyone in this business who is willing to, give companies room and be like, this is a cool thing, or here's why, it's going to be me, right? I'm just saying we've been burned by companies before coming in and saying, oh yeah, we got this thing coming. Here's a beautiful mock-up, and it's going to solve all your problems. Because then let's talk about the cameras, right? The cameras are going to be good. So I feel like it's funny too, because it's like a lot of the reasons why people hate it on Windows Phone were the cameras, besides some of the Lumias. And a lot of people don't like Windows 10 and ARM because Snapdragon was too slow. So all those both problems still now totally exist for this device, but people are all like now willing to look the other way. Are you nuts? What are you kidding me? I mean, I was writing reviews on the Snapdragon 850. And people are telling me it's still too slow. And I'm like, no, it's actually all right for if you're doing certain work, it's fine. And so now we're going back to, and now we're the 8CX, and people are telling me that's still too slow, and it's not. But now you're stepping back, and it's going to be fine on a little 6-inch device. And now all your criticisms of like Windows on ARM are put aside. Come on.
The other thing we should probably talk about is that they're promising Android apps that don't run in emulation. They've not described how they're managing this, but I call rubbish. I don't think this is a thing that will happen. If there are Android apps on it, they're running in emulation. There's no way they're not.
Yeah. So there's so either running BlueStacks, but they
Which is
said they're not running
emulation.
emulation. So they said so it's not BlueStacks. And then there could be the Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, in which case it's still technically
It's
emulation.
still emulation, yeah.
And like, yeah, let's just say it's just one of those. So there's no Google Play Store, right? This isn't going to be like you're running native Android. Like, for instance, people always bring this up, like, I wish you could run Android apps on Windows. Like, you can. You've been able to run Android apps on Windows for years. It's called BlueStacks. Go download it. It's free. You can just go download and run Android apps. You have to find the APKs, and hopefully they're not viruses. I mean, it doesn't matter because it's, an emulation siloed. You're not going to get anything. But, like, you can go do all this stuff and try it out, like right now. If you really want Android apps on your desktop PC or your laptop, go do it, right? But there's a reason why most of you, A, have never heard of it, or B, have never tried it. It's because it's not that great. I mean, for some people, they're going to find a use for this and love it, and that's cool. But this idea of running, you're not going to have Google Play services, which is always a big problem because Android is, 80% associated with some of these Google core services, whether it's Maps, it's Gmail, and Play, and Music Store, and all this kind of stuff. So you're not going to get any of that stuff because it's not supported. You got to sideload and find APKs, which is not hard, but, it's a kind of a pain to do. There's the UI stuff and using this. BlueStacks is mostly meant to be used as a mouse cursor kind of thing on your desktop because obviously. But now you're talking on just a display Windows phone with no mouse cursor support. So it's like, I think people have in their head that they're going to, and this isn't a dual boot thing. Don't bring up dual booting again. This isn't dual booting. And that's still a terrible, horrible experience that no one should have on a mobile device. I don't know. This whole thing is just weird.
Yeah, if this product ever ships, which I don't think it will, I would put money that it would never ship. If it does ship, it will be a terrible phone. It will be a terrible experience. It just won't be a great. And that's not Imperium's fault necessarily. That's just Windows 10 isn't designed for phones. It's a desktop operating system. Windows 10 Mobile was around for that. That's not around anymore. So stop making Windows phones. There other versions of Windows exist. Windows 10X is the only other option for a device like this, and they're not shipping it Windows 10X, so there's no point even talking about it. Like, nobody wants Windows 10 Pro on a phone. It's unnecessary. The only thing it'd be good at is docking up to an extended big screen and using it like a continuum thing, because that would then just be a PC that fits in your pocket, which, fine, that makes sense. But that's the only scenario where a phone like this makes sense. And you might not even call it a phone. You might as well just call it a mini PC that you take the screen out of it, stick it in your pocket, and then plug it into an external display when you're at work. That would be a better experience than having it as a phone that fits in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe makes calls through Skype, right? It uses just your
it's a VoIP phone.
Yeah, so it's a VoIP phone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, listen, some people may be like willing to try that. You can use Skype to call landlines, but yeah, I mean, it's not going to be an ideal experience. I think the promise of like a little PC that's shaped like a phone, Type-C connector fits in your pocket that you can then go plug into a Type-C dock and have a keyboard and mouse. Listen, that's actually kind of interesting, right? I mean, some people would actually kind of find that useful. That's existed. That's been around for a while. I have a couple of these little tiny PCs that can kind of do this thing. That's interesting. And maybe somehow this thing can make calls on the go with LTE. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this stuff. Maybe there are high-level talks with Microsoft and they're behind this. The thing is, I don't really trust this company because I've never heard of them. They don't have any products. They don't have a customer service. They don't even have a website at the time that we wrote that article. They had at the time I was actually writing the article, they had less than 300 Twitter followers. They have now, like, by the time I finished the article, they had around 500. Listen, if this was HP doing this, or Dell or Lenovo, I'd be like, I'd give them the leeway. Be like, okay, these companies, they work with Microsoft, they make their own hardware, they know what they're doing. I'd be willing to, give them a lot more leniency. But listen, folks, this is a no-name company. Like, yeah, we had this happen with the Cerulean thing, and I wrote an article saying why you shouldn't support them. Microsoft should support them, but you shouldn't. And the Cerulean phone was just a Mali phone. It was a Chinese knockoff, right? It wasn't going to be anything great anyway. I'm just saying being skeptical. Even if you can get around in your head and come up with all these, well, technically they could do, like, are you really going to throw down $700 to $800 on this device from a no-name company whose support you don't know about. I don't. It seems risky.
I would
I'd
recommend buying a Surface Duo or a Lumia
Yeah.
950 if you
Yeah.
really,
I
really
mean,
want
this
Windows.
is again good for maybe early adopters who have a lot of extra money, don't mind taking risks. But I don't want to sell it as like, I know, because underneath all this are Windows Phone users going, oh, is this
Yeah,
it? This
exactly.
is it?
That's it. Yeah.
This is my Windows Phone? Like, no, this is absolutely not your Windows Phone. Like, um, and I think we also both agree that this device conceptually would make much more sense if it was Windows 10X.
Yeah. And
Like
yeah.
everybody's getting now on board with this. Oh, Windows 10X is a really light version of Windows that gives scalability, allows you to do Win32 if you need to, but it's gonna be like Windows Mobile, but it could do kind of more stuff. But problem is 10X isn't out yet, and 10X doesn't support ARM
Yeah.
as of now,
Yeah.
so that can't happen.
So there you go. End of conversation.
We'll follow this. If Empyrean makes this device and ships it, well, I'll review it. I'll be totally fair. Listen, if this thing is cool as hell, I'll tell you. Zach will tell you. Don't worry about it.
I'm
Don't take the
happy
risk.
to be proven wrong here.
All I'm saying, yeah. Oh, I'd love to be proven wrong. I'm just saying, just don't get your hopes up on this, right? Because I don't want to build this up to be like
Don't
your
not
next
pre-order a
Windows.
Surface Duo because you think this device might come out. Because
Yeah.
it probably
Right.
won't.
Yeah. Yeah. Duo will have its own quirks and things to be concerned about, but it'll exist at least. But
Yeah.
hey, we'll see. Anyway, this was originally supposed to be a short podcast.
Yeah,
Turned
don't
out to be
know
one
what
of our
happened.
longest ones.
See, that's what happens when we just like, there's not much to talk about, so let's just have a conversation.
Yeah, Zach and I were almost not going to do this podcast because
Yeah.
we're like, nothing really happened this week. And we're both kind of like, it's Friday.
Yeah.
I know Zach wants to go clubbing.
No, I
That's just in
don't.
my head. He doesn't club.
No.
But anyway, we're going to wrap it up this time. We'll be back, of course, next Friday. We're going to do now Q&A. So if you guys have questions that we didn't answer during the podcast, start firing them off in the chat rooms, and we'll start answering those. Unfortunately, if you're listening to this recorded, you don't get to hear the answers to those questions. That's because it'd be really weird and awkward to record that. But you're more than welcome to join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central or our YouTube channel where we do video broadcasts of this, and you guys can chat with us and join in and ask us questions and all that cool stuff. So make sure you join us for that. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and Zach at ZACBOWDEN on Twitter. And I'll be more than glad to interact with you there. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Cool. So yes, question time. Well, I've probably got about 10 minutes before I have to head off.
Is ARM support planned for 10X? Zach probably knows more about this. I would say it's on the roadmap.
Yeah, we asked them,
not,
and when they didn't give us an exact ETA, they were like, "Yeah, we definitely want to do it." And the reason why it's not there at launch is because of the emulation. The virtualization of Win32 on Windows 10X. So on Intel processors, that's just one layer of, it's essentially emulation. You're booting up a legacy version of Windows 10 in the background, and that is going to take up system resources. Now, if you throw it on an ARM processor and you're trying to run a Win32 a 32-bit Win32 program, that's an additional layer of emulation, which will cause even more performance. So Microsoft doesn't want users to sort of buy a Windows 10X device with ARM, try and load up a Win32 program in 2 layers of emulation, essentially, and say, oh, it's really slow, because it will be. Now, Microsoft is expecting they can improve this over time, but at launch, that's why it's exclusive to Intel processors.
Zach, you sure this was episode podcast 167? I think it's 166.
Are you sure?
Well, the last one I recorded one was 165.
Oh, no.
But they recorded the beginning over
Did I
again.
get this wrong? No, it is 167. 165 was... you wasn't here for 165.
Oh, then last week's was 165, I think.
No, last week's was 166, I promise.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Because I know there's that 1 week goes out. Are the new icons available in 1903? They release previews getting the mail and calendar icons. That's it. And then some people are getting them in fastering, and that's it.
Yeah,
right
and most of them are in fastering right now, but I'm sure they'll roll out as app updates over time.
Still using Cortana on Android, fine in Australia. It was meant to be removed January 28th. Has Microsoft had a change of plan? Not to our knowledge. I guess they probably didn't flick the switch yet.
If you're talking about the dedicated Cortana app on Android, the change has already happened, except they didn't disable the app. If you already have it installed, all that happens now is that it should just default to US. The change is you can't find it on the Play Store no more. At least I can't. If I look for Cortana in the Play Store, the listing isn't there. You can still download it if you just look for it on the web and click on the Play Store link through Google or something. You will find the page and can install it. But by default now, whenever I launch Cortana, there's no longer an option to change the region and stuff. It's just set to US always.
If you had to guess on the price of the Surface Neo, what would you guess, considering the hinge engineering, thin LCD screens, and glass body? $899. I think $899 would be
plus
very
$400
generous.
trade-in.
I mean, I really don't know. I mean,
Surface
$1,200
Neo will be more than $899.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like
so I originally thought
$1,000.
Yeah, I originally thought Surface Duo was going to be $1,500 and the Surface Neo would be $2,000. Now I'm more leaning, and maybe we'll talk more about this next week when I write the article. Now I'm leaning more towards Surface Duo being $1,000 and Neo being $1,500.
Yeah,
because I was severely overestimating the R&D that went into the hinge mechanism, but it's still two screens compared to a foldable. A foldable should always be more expensive than two-screen device, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But who knows? Also, Surface is a premium brand, so whatever it actually costs, add a few $100 more into that because it's a Surface.
Since Mobile World Congress isn't taking place, is there another event that we can see all the new phones coming out this year? Nope. I heard Sony's releasing a new flagship, but what about others? Yeah, I think a lot of these companies are going to be doing their own own events, and you're gonna have to just pay attention to the press. But yeah, there won't be any Mobile World Congress replacement this year, so that's sort of the problem. So it's a little harder to find information, including new laptops that were supposed to be announced in Mobile World Congress. Nothing huge, but companies like Lenovo did have a few things that you'll be hearing about, but they're just going to come out as like press releases and all that kind of stuff. Is the Surface Studio, standalone monitor confirmed? Nope. In fact, we've never heard anything to suggest that it is coming or it's a project of theirs.
There were rumors last year that there is a monitor on the way. I've heard that the Studio 3 will be this fall, which I have only heard from... don't quote me on that for now, but the rumor is that the Studio 3 will be modular and you'll be able to buy a Studio 3 with just the monitor and use that.
That would make sense. I mean, some people were looking at the new Icons Medium post, and they had these screenshots of what looked like.
Yeah, I saw that. It looked nice.
It looked like a Studio-esque device, but with a brand new hinge and all this kind of stuff. Now, there were the 3D renders, but it makes you wonder. That design I could totally see working as well. So,
someone was asking, how do you see the Surface Duo Neo fitting into your everyday, I guess, workflow? They said device, but I'm saying, how do you see it fitting into your workflow, Dan?
The Neo is going to be tough for me only because as far as we know, it doesn't have LTE. And I've already established the fact that for me to basically use a mobile device, like the other extreme is like I'm using the LG Gram 17, right? It's a 17-inch Ultrabook. I use that for like big stuff, right? But for portability, I always go for the Pro X because of the LTE and it's on stuff. As far as I know, the Neo doesn't have LTE as of now, and that's what we're expecting. In which case, I don't know how I'm going to be using it. Unless the form and function is just so much better than my Pro X, it's going to be kind of a tough sell. So I don't know. The Duo, it's the same thing with the folding part, how that works. I really, need a good external display smartwatch. That's why we had our conversation about the Galaxy Watch at the beginning.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to try and replace my smartphone with the Duo. It's a smartphone. I should be able to do that just fine. I'll probably try and sell every other external device I have. I don't need it once the Duo's out. The Neo is a hard one for me as well. Originally, I was just going to essentially replace my Surface Go with it. Because I have the Surface Go. I use it as a sort of around-the-house tablet. I also actually bring it to conferences with me. You can ask Dan. I've been sitting in the press rooms with the Go because I actually really like the Surface Go. I just like how portable it is. And I'm assuming the Surface Neo would replace that. But now I've got a Pro X. I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. I don't need a Pro X and a Neo.
Yeah, there's definitely, there's the overlap there.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get it for Windows 10 X. That's the primary reason I'll buy one.
Yeah, that's going to be the real question. It's going to be the performance and the experience.
Yeah.
Does that outweigh the Pro X in usage? And it may, but I would, man, if the Neo had LTE, I'd be way more excited about it.
Yeah, me too, 1,000%. Hopefully that it does have LTE. They sat on it long enough that maybe like actually LTE makes sense.
That'd be nice, but this is Microsoft. I've also asked Microsoft to put LTE as an option in all their services, and they haven't. So will the Duo just have a front-facing camera that flips around to also be a rear-facing one? Because that would be pretty cool. Yes. That wasn't the original plan. Zach knows more about this than I do, but the current form is just a single camera. Zach actually got more details about why that is, but I think you may want to save that for an article. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll save it for an article.
Yeah, so we have a reason, an explanation about why there isn't a rear-facing camera.
I'm sure they would do it eventually.
Yeah, but at least for this version, it doesn't. And the reasoning when you hear it, it's like, it makes sense, right? Yeah. When I heard the reason, it's like, yeah, that's logical. It's not like, well, Panos hates cameras or Panos doesn't think photography is important. It's not something like that where you're like, oh, that's stupid. It's gonna be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I will say: previous prototypes had an external camera. They definitely tested it. They built it. They prototyped it. Panos had one for a long time. And there's a reason why they didn't go with that. And it's to do with like usability and design and stuff. There's a lot of reasons. And I guess they just think the front-facing camera is enough for the Gen 1. I'm even though we're calling it a front-facing camera, I think it's fair to think of it as an actual dedicated camera, like just the camera, the back camera, but just facing the front because it's the only camera on the device. So it'll be a good camera. It just won't be able to compete when it comes to like zoom in or ultra wide capabilities that other phones can do.
And I just want to add, and we'll talk about this probably on another podcast, but because of some of the lack of flagship features on this device, actually could work in the favor of, this is why I think Zach was talking about keeping the price lower than actually what we're anticipating.
So you've got to think of it like, so Surface Duo is a product we've been talking about for 4 years, like under Andromeda. This isn't a new product that Microsoft thought up 2 years ago. This is a 4-year-old, 5-year-old project, which was supposed to launch in 2018. Which might explain why it has bezels as large as it does and will be shipping with some other things that you probably wouldn't expect on a 2020 flagship. I'm trying to write an article on this. Maybe I'll post it next week. In which case we'll talk about it more on the podcast next week. But yeah, I think this product might be cheaper than we was all expecting it to be because of those sort of, I guess, disadvantages in some ways, but advantages in others because it's like, oh, it's cheaper now, so now more people can buy it.
Yeah, that's a real mystery there. If they can keep this price at $1,000,
if the Duo is $1,000, that would be incredible.
It would, I think, change things for the better, and people would be willing to overlook some of that, the flagship issues. Yeah, it's really, really tough. So I was asking a follow-on question: if how come there's no AMD support for the 10X emulator? I forgot the exact reasoning behind this. But it's around somewhere. I'm sorry. We'll try to dig that up. But yeah,
I think it's because it doesn't support nested virtualization.
Yeah, I think it's something with
Maybe.
that.
I don't know.
It's not because they hate AMD. Quite the opposite. Actually, I would say Microsoft is aggressively pushing for inclusion of AMD more, which is why they put it into the Surface laptop. That wasn't like, I've made a joke that they're throwing AMD a bone, and they kind of are. And I'll still go to my grave saying that the processor in the Surface Laptop 3 from AMD is not very good. That said, I did just, spend a day and a half with AMD. And, I'm very excited about what's coming from AMD. So Microsoft is also very excited about pushing, being processor agnostic and supporting all these guys. So I'm sure you'll see that get fixed somehow.
Is it possible to get an insider build of Windows 10X on current PCs? Not officially. There is a rather complex tutorial you can follow to do it, but there's no guarantee it will work very well. And there's a possibility you could brick or perma lock your device to Windows 10X if you don't do it properly. So the answer officially is no, but if you're feeling brave enough, you might be able to get it running. Some people have got it running on a Surface Go. Some people got it running on a MacBook, and I think someone got it running on a Dell XPS as well. A lot of people asking about the Surface earbuds. We've not heard anything new regarding when they should be showing up. Panos said spring. Spring is coming up. We know there is a spring hardware event. Well, there's a spring hardware event.
It has to be all tied together, right? I mean, so the buds may be able to come out earlier, but something. Well, it really depends, right? Yeah, perhaps they could just release them, be like, oh, they're available to order now, boop, and there we go.
They could easily do that.
But the question is, why were they delayed? Like, were they delayed because of manufacturing issues or something else going on, a technical reason, or was it because they want to rework and add a new feature to them?
I don't
Something
think
that
so,
was. I don't think so either. I mean,
No.
I think that's like the real optimistic. But I'm saying if it was that latter case, then I could see them almost saving for the spring event specifically to be like a. But they still may just save them for the spring event just because of timing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it just makes sense to announce everything all in one. I think the reason they were delayed is because the app that they're building for it wasn't ready. I don't think they're adding any new features. I think maybe, if anything, they might drop the price by $50. They were $249 originally, which is frankly too expensive.
Yeah.
If they could do $199, that'd be a big deal.
I agree. Someone's about the Surface. Oh, sorry, I meant 10x for battery life. I mean, you can't. Someone's asking about the OneNote and Pena conferences. Would it get 6 hours of battery life? I mean, we have absolutely no idea on Surface Neo the size of the battery and how optimized 10x is for. I can't make any estimates on that. I like to think it's going to be very good battery life, but it's way too early. And we also don't know about the next gen platform from Intel that it's running on, how well that gets for batteries. So, yeah, someone's talking about nested virtualizations is required to run Windows 10X in the emulator, and Windows does not yet support this on AMD processors. Stay tuned. Thank you, Brian Stone. Yes, that's
the reason it requires nested virtualization is because to run a Win32 program, it virtualizes legacy Windows. So you're running Windows 10X in a virtualized device, and then when you run a Win32 program, that boots up a virtual version of Windows 10. It's really great.
Now throw Windows 10 ARM into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like, whoa. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Zach and I have talked about this before, how we'd like someday to get this full story out of Microsoft about how they've been doing this stuff with modularization and virtualization, because it's like, it boggles, as non-developers, it boggles my mind to think about the complexities involved in doing this and still making it work. Yeah, noise canceling on buds would be dope. I still got to write that article. I'll do that next week. We talked about that in the last podcast, I believe. You can't do noise canceling on these headphones. For one, they don't sit in the ear canal, so they don't physically block noise,
they're
which
like
is one
Apple's,
of the
non-Pro AirPods.
The pros also go into the ear canal. So that's one half of the story of noise cancellation is you need to physically isolate the ear. These do not do that. And there's a specific reason. I mean, maybe they come up with a way to toggle the software and all that, but don't forget, these are literally designed to be used at the office. You put them in for 8 hours. The thing about in-ear canal style is they're very good at blocking noise. They're also very bad at comfort for a long duration. Microsoft wants you to be able to put these in your ear and leave them in for 8 hours. And I have headphones like these. My Bose Sports are like these. I could wear them forever. They never get tired of my ears, because they don't sit in the ear canal. The thing is that when you're at the office, they want it so if Jim or Sarah comes up to you and talks to you, you don't need to pop out the headphones or hit a button. You can hear the ambient noise. Also, if you think about the primary use for this that they showed, where people are giving presentations using PowerPoint and sliding and translation, try putting noise-canceling earphones or things that go in your ear canal and then talk and give a presentation. It's weird. You're going to get really screwed up. So I'd say that concept of noise cancellation goes against the fundamental idea of what the buds are supposed to be. But who knows, right? I mean, we haven't heard anything to suggest they're doing anything different.
A couple more questions. Apple might let people set default apps. Any thoughts on that?
Yes.
It would be nice. I'd love to have Edge and Outlook set as my defaults on iOS.
Yep. It honestly hasn't been that bad. So I'm using the iPhone 11 for the last 4 months, and I have Edge as my default browser, well, not as the browser. But, there aren't a lot of instances where I'm hitting links from other applications that are opening. And what happens is, you say I'm in Mail and I open and it opens up. I think actually if you use Outlook, you can default to Edge.
Yeah, you can.
And if you think about it, that's most of the time how I'm getting my links anyway. But even when you don't do that and it opens up Safari, you just hit the share and open it up in Edge. I just do that. It's an extra step.
That is a terrible UX, Dan.
I understand, but honestly, it hasn't phased me much because I just... Yeah.
And you don't want to open your phone every time a notification comes in, yet you're happy to just share to Edge every
I'm not saying I'm
second.
happy, I'm just saying it works. It doesn't bother me much. Yeah, I mean, what Zach comes. Obviously, who's going to argue against this, right? It would just make iOS better. I still find iOS
I can guarantee, and Microsoft is celebrating at this news. They're like, yes, our
yeah.
favorite mobile
Well,
platform.
so it wouldn't be Google, right? So
Yeah. I don't really care because I'm getting a Duo. But
right.
if I was an iPhone user, I'd be ecstatic right now. Someone's asking, can we leave the podcast stream on YouTube? We do leave them on YouTube. They're just hidden from the main channel because we don't upload enough other videos for it to look fine. Because otherwise it would just be like 4 or 5 podcasts and then one normal video. So we hide the YouTube live stream once it's broadcast.
But if you save this link,
if you save the link, but also if you go to the playlist area on the Windows Central channel, there is a Windows Central podcast playlist. If you click in there, all of our past
okay.
broadcasts are there, so you can go and watch anyone if we streamed it live. They're all there. They'll be there forever.
It is also on Mixer.com.
Yeah, they're on there for 3 months, I think, until Mixer deletes them.
This is a question I was asked earlier. I'm a university student. Should I buy the MSI Prestige 15 for university? Is it good for video editing? I love the Prestige 15. I have the Prestige. I have the older version. It came out last year. It's one of my actually favorite laptops. And so, yeah, I think so. What's cool about the Prestige? I'm thinking it's the same model. It has an Ultrabook processor, but it's paired with a nice GPU in there, which is something you rarely see. So you get really good battery life on this thing. But then when you need to use a GPU for, say, video editing, you get that performance. So I think this is a great combination I'd love to see more of. It's also got a really nice keyboard. Trackpad is good. The display is also very good. MSI makes very good displays. The only thing I don't love is the audio. Speakers are not very good, but you can throw in headphones if you really need to. And speakers work, But yeah, the MSI Prestige is a pretty solid choice. Any Lumia Duo in 2020? No, come on.
Lumia's dead, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? I think that's pretty much it.
Yep. I think that's it.
Cool. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next week as always. But until then, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on when everything is happening. And yeah, laters.
Bye, everyone.